Hello everybody, welcome to the Commander at Arms YouTube channel. Halloween is coming up, and I am dressed up as Paul from Commander at Arms. No, you see, it's a joke, because normally I have the Commander at Arms shirt on, but I'm dressed like normal, so technically I'm dressed like Paul. Anyway, bad joke aside, I have actually put together a list for 2 of the new Friends Forever, you know, the partner, not really partner commanders from the Stranger Things Secret Lair that are coming out at some point. You know how Secret Lairs work, they take a while. But anyway, I really liked the idea of putting Lucas and Max together, which I don't actually watch Stranger Things, but I know it's somewhat of they're like a couple on the show. I don't know. Feel free to correct me if I'm wrong in the comments below. But anyway, yeah, I put together a whole list for them. I've been working on this for about a week or 2. It's taken me a little while to get it together with work, and plus I went through a couple changes with the actual list here and there. But anyway, I guess without further ado, let's get right into it. And don't forget, if you like what you're watching, subscribe for more. We have a lot of deck techs on here already, and we plan on doing more as time passes. Alright. So, Lucas and Max, let's go ahead and read off the commanders themselves. So we have Lucas the Sharpshooter, if I can find my mouse. There we go. Lucas the Sharpshooter is a legendary human. It's a 1/3. Tap, sack an artifact. Lucas deals 1 damage to target creature. Goad that creature. If you are a fan of the show, and you've been listening to an episode, at least here and there, you know that Goad is one of my favorite mechanics of all time. So when I saw that, I was already interested. And has Friends Forever, which is basically partner, but you can only partner 2 things that have Friends Forever. Kind of weird, but... And next we have Max the Daredevil. By the way, Lucas was a red and a blue, 2 mana. Forgot to say that, my bad. We have Max the Daredevil is 1 red and a green for a legendary human again. 3/2 with haste. And whenever you cast your second spell each turn, untap target creature, then investigate. And investigate means that you create a colorless clue artifact token with 2 sacrifice this artifact, draw a card. Also has Friends Forever. That is the pair that we're working with, and Lucas's plan is pretty obvious, right? You sack an artifact, you goad stuff, you ping stuff. That's pretty straightforward. But Max's ability, whenever you cast your second spell each turn, untap target creature, then investigate. Obviously that pairs really well with Lucas, but there's so many different ways that you can accomplish that, right? You can just have things that untap Lucas. You don't even have to care about Max's ability if you don't want to. You can have just nothing but really cheap spells, but that was the first idea I went with, was just really cheap spells, and there's some remnants of that in here. But then I thought, the best way to cast 2 spells each turn is if the second one is free and guaranteed. And that, of course, means that I'm talking about Cascade. So I decided to build this as a Cascade deck, because I've never done that before. I've also never had a Teamer deck before. I'm really excited that I can finally do both of those things in one succinct, cool little package. And yeah, let's just get into it. So I'm actually going to go over the ramp first, and I think I'll get right into the main stuff, because it's going to be pretty integral to what we're doing here. So for ramp, I made it mostly artifacts, because Lucas sacrifices artifacts later on in the game, so a little more utility than your generic green ramp. So we got Arcane Signet, Gruul Signet, Izzet Signet, and Simic Signet. So we got all the signets that we can run here. We have Mind Stone. This is one that we have seen before, though not for a while. Again, very important because it is an artifact. We can turn it into a card later, or we can use Lucas to sack this to goad something. We got Soul Ring, and I'm not zooming in on these because these are all things we've seen before, but a couple of things we haven't seen before. Inspiring Statuary. Non-artifact spells you cast have Improvise. There is a pretty hefty amount of artifacts in here, obviously, but for those big beefy Cascade creatures that cost like, 6, 7, 8 mana, those we can use the clues we get from Max. We can get, we have like artifact creatures, we have equipment in here that we can use to pay for those big spells, those big creatures, right? So we can actually get off quite a few spells in one turn, theoretically speaking, even if we have let's underestimate and say we have 3 or 4 treasures. that's an extra 3 or 4 mana that we can use to cast, like, you know, Apex Devastator, which, spoiler, that card isn't here. And next we have Weirding Wood. Nothing really special about this one. It's enchantment ramp, but when it enters the battlefield, you investigate. So it makes another clue that you can either use for card draw or use for Lucas. And that's all for the ramp. I'm a little light here, but the commanders are pretty cheap, and generally speaking, you can pretty much keep up your card draw pretty reliably so that you can find your ramp when you need it. Theoretically speaking, of course. All right, so for the main plan, like I said, we're on Cascade. I only have 12 cards here, but there's a bunch of other stuff in here that helps you Cascade or, you know, whatever the case may be. So we're going to start off with Apex Devastator. 10 mana, 8 and 2 green for a 10/10 Chimera Hydra. When I first saw this card revealed, I thought it was fake. But it's got Cascade, 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 Cascade. That's 4 times, which means that when you cast it, you exile cards from the top of your library until you hit something that costs 9 or less 4 times. Next up, we have Aurora Phoenix. Flying 5/3 for 4 and 2 green with Cascade. And whenever you cast a spell with Cascade, you get to return this from your graveyard to your hand. So this is actually a self-recurring card that also cascades, so you get more free spells with it. And when you cast your other free spells, Aurora Phoenix has to come back to your hand. You get to do it all over again. Absolute classic here, Bloodbraid Elf, 2, a red and a green for a 3/2 with haste with Cascade. This card has seen play pretty much everywhere, from the floor to the ceiling. Ethereum Horn Sorcerer, this is not one that you see as much. 4 blue and a red for a 3/6 Minotaur Wizard. Also an artifact, by the way. You could pay 1 blue and a red to bounce it back to your hand, and it has Cascade. And the purpose of bouncing it to your hand is so that you get to Cascade again. Next up, another classic. In the heydays of Commander, like way back when, this was like one of the most popular commanders that I used to see all the time. That is Maelstrom Wanderer, 5 green, blue, red for a legendary elemental. It's a 7/5. Creatures you control have haste. That includes itself, and it has Cascade, Cascade. Possibility Storm doesn't literally have Cascade, but it gets you a second spell regardless. So maybe not as good as Cascade because you're not getting 2 spells for the price of 1, but does guarantee you that second spell for Max's ability. Also one of my favorite cards of all time. We have Rashmi, same thing as Possibility Storm, not literally Cascade, but can get you a second spell off the top of your library pretty often. Sakashima's Protege, one of my picks for one of the biggest sleeper cards from Commander Legends. 4 and 2 blue for a 3/1 Shapeshifter with Flash and Cascade. And you may have it enter the battlefield as a copy of any permanent that entered the battlefield this turn. That includes opponent's permanents, so if they play something juicy, you get to copy it. Or if you cascade into something that you want to copy, you just have it enter a copy of that. Worst case scenario, this can ramp you a little bit, like you copy a land or something. But yeah, this is a really cool card, and I'm glad I finally have a place to really play this for full efficacy. Next, we have Charlotte's Agent. This one's another classic. 1 green and a blue for a 2/2 human rogue with Cascade. Nothing else about it except for the fact that it is an artifact again, which means that later on in the game, Lucas can actually sack this. We have Throes of Chaos. 3 and a red for sorcery with Cascade and Retrace. Retrace just means that you can cast it from your graveyard by paying its mana cost and discarding a land. Violent Outburst. 1 red and a green for an instant with Cascade. Creatures you control get +1/+0 till end of turn. Again, this is just to secure a second spell. Doesn't really do much else outside of that. It's a pretty popular spell to get like Living Death in Modern. And finally, we have Wild Magic Sorcerer, 3 and a red for a 4/3. The first spell you cast from exile each turn has Cascade. Don't know if you knew this, but the spell that you cast from Cascade has the spell that you cast from Cascade, you're casting from exile, because you're exiling cards from the top of your library. So you cascade into a spell, you cast it from exile. With Wild Magic Sorcerer on the field, that spell also has Cascade. So a little cute interaction there. Can also give things that didn't previously have Cascade. Cascade, potentially. But really, it's just there for a little bit of additional value. All right. That's it for our main plan, and again, we'll find a few other things here and there that have Cascade as well. Let's go into some more boring stuff. Let's talk about removal. I have Capsize here. This was one of my first inclusions because it has buyback, so you can play it twice in a turn for max visibility. We have Lightning Bolt. This is just a remnant of when I had this as a cheap spell deck, but Lightning Bolt is surprisingly efficient and powerful in Commander. A lot of commanders actually have 3 or less toughness, so I left it in here. Nature's Claim, cheap removal. We've seen this one before. Root Out, 2 and a green, destroy target artifact or enchantment, and investigate. So this one's a little more expensive than your usual removal, but also gives you a little bit of card draw if you need it, or worst case scenario, another artifact to sack for Lucas. Spine of Ishsa. Expensive removal, yes, but with Lucas, this is actually very easily recurable because you can keep sacrificing it for Lucas's ability. Also hits any permanent, including lands. And now we're going to go on to the card draw here. We have Dig Through Time. I've talked about this card before, probably one of my favorite card draw spells of all time. I included tutors in here as well because I didn't really have any other place to put them, so we got Fabricate. We play a lot of artifacts. We want them, so we play Fabricate to get them. Gamble, it's a tutor, gets any card you want. You risk discarding it too, but whatever. Usually you don't care about that. Risk is worth the reward, something like that. We got a Gataxian Probe. This is a free spell. I had this in here for max because it's literally just something that you can just tack on to trigger max. Oops, my bad. We have Growth Spiral. I didn't know whether to put this in card draw or ramp. It's both. It's equally efficient at both. We have Ichor Wellspring. It's 2 mana for an artifact, and when it enters the battlefield or is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, draw a card. Very easy to put it into the graveyard with this deck. Impulse, you get to look at the top 4 of your library, put 1 in your hand, rest on the bottom. This is like a very classic card draw card, because it's not literally drawing cards. We've got Ponder and Preordain, another couple classics, not going to talk about those much. And we have See the Truth. Now this is one that we haven't seen. Look at the top 3 cards of your library, put 1 of those cards into your hand, the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. If this spell was cast from anywhere other than your hand, you get to keep all 3 of those cards. Fun fact, we're playing a Cascade deck. It's actually not that unreliable for us to be able to cast this from exile. So, more often than not, we'll actually be getting all 3 of the cards off of this. We have Think Twice. Again, this one is in here just because for 5 mana you can cast it and then instantly cast it again, so you can trigger max that way. And that's it for the card draw. We've only actually got a couple piles here left. Let me check my time here real quick. Looks like we're doing okay. Let's go with the utility over here. So Averna the Chaos Bloom is Teamer. That's green, blue, and a red for a 4/2 legendary elemental shaman. As you cascade, you may put a land card from among the exiled cards onto the battlefield tapped. Just a nice way to add just a little bit of additional value onto the already extremely value-intensive cascades. We have Basilisk Collar. This is in here because Lucas is a pinger at heart. And worst case scenario, if you need to just start killing stuff by pinging it off, Basilisk Collar lets you do just that. We have Battle Mage's Bracers. 2 in red for an equipment. Gives haste. You can equip it for 2. And also, whenever an ability of the equipped creature is activated, if it's not a mana ability, you may pay 1. And if you do, copy that ability, and you may choose new targets for the copy. This is for Lucas, pretty much. You can get 2 activations of his ability for the price of 1 artifact instead of having to sacrifice 2. We have Fires of Yavimaya, 1 red and a green for an enchantment. The second part, target creature gets +2/+2. That's not really relevant. We mainly have this for the creatures you control have haste. Freed from the Real. I did also have Pemin's Aura in here, but I thought the redundancy was a little unnecessary because we can generally untap Lucas a lot naturally. But this is in here just for that little bit of redundancy to be able to untap Lucas a bunch. We have Geode Rager. Now, obviously, this doesn't cascade, but I love Goad. I wanted to include at least a couple elements of Goad in the deck naturally. So, Geode Rager, I think this might have been my pick for the best card from that Commander set for the Zendikar. But it's a first striking 4/3 for 4 and 2 red. And whenever you play a land, or whenever a land and ETB is under your control, you goad each creature target player controls. Each creature. You don't have to pick one. Each creature. Next, we have Ingenuity Engine. Here's one of those spells I mentioned before that has Cascade, but I didn't have in there before. And the reason is because this one is 7 mana, Cascade. You can pay 1, tap this, and sack an artifact to return an artifact you control to its owner's hand. So you can sack one of your clues to return Ingenuity Engine to your hand, to cast it again, to Cascade again. We have Intruder Alarm. This card is pretty infamous. We're not using it for any combos in here. It's literally just because we want to untap Lucas as much as we possibly can. And just in case you're having trouble doing that with Max's ability, this is in here for a little bit of redundancy. Lightning Greaves, I don't gotta talk about that one. Rhythm of the Wild, enchantment for 1 red and a green. Creature spells you control can't be countered. And non-token creatures you control have Riot. Again, that's primarily for the haste, and not being able to be countered is also nice, especially with all our Cascade creatures. Seedborn Muse, amazing card, extremely famous, one of the best green cards. It's in here to untap Lucas, basically. Snapcaster Mage. This counts as casting a spell, obviously, and then you flash back an instant resource in your graveyard, which counts as your second spell, so this triggers Max pretty reliably. Swiftfoot Boots, blah. 1,000-Year Elixir. Again, this is in here for the pseudo haste that it gives to Lucas, and it also untaps Lucas with its second ability. Torrential Gearhulk is not one that we see very often. It's 4 and 2 blue for a 5/6 artifact creature with flash, and it's basically like a Snapcaster Mage, except the card that you get has to be an instant, and you get to play it for free. So this is another way of getting that second spell per turn for Max. And that's actually it for our utility package over here. We're going to go into our artifact generation. This one, while not generating an artifact by itself, it says if you would create a clue, food, or treasure token, instead create one of each. There's 3 mana for a 1/3 Assembly Worker, Academy Manufactor. This card is so good for this deck because every time you trigger Max, which you can do more than once per turn, by the way, that's not a once per turn effect. Well, it has to be your second spell each turn, so I lied. But anyway, we have ways to do it on other people's turn. But anyway, it means that when you investigate with Max's ability, instead of just making that clue, you are making a clue, a food, and a treasure. That's 3 artifacts. And you even get to keep the clue for the card draw and the treasure for the ramp, and you can use the food to sack for Lucas. Or you can just use all 3 to sack for Lucas. Great card. I think it's perhaps at its best in this particular deck. Next up, we have Emry, Lurker of the Loch. 2 and a blue for a 1/2 Merfolk Wizard. Cost 1 less for each artifact you control, and when it ETBs, you mill 4. You can tap it to choose an artifact in your graveyard, and you may cast that card this turn. Obviously, we have a lot of artifacts, so we'll be able to cast a lot of stuff out of the graveyard with Emry. No real other way to put it. Doesn't generate artifacts by itself, but allows us to recur the ones that we do have. Fey Offering, a card that I thought was really cool out of Modern Horizons 2. 2 and a green for an enchantment. At the beginning of each end step, if you've cast both a creature and non-creature spell this turn, create a clue, food, and treasure token. Fey Offering does count itself on the turn that you cast it for the non-creature spell. So if you can cast this and a creature in the same turn, that's 3 artifacts right there. Hangerback Walker. XX for a 0/0, enters the battlefield, X +1/+1 counters on it. When it dies, you make 1/1 colorless Thopter artifact creature tokens equal to the number of +1/+1 counters on it. You can also pay 1 and tap it to put a +1/+1 counter on it. Magnifying Glass. Technically, this is also ramp, but at 3 mana, I hesitate to consider it in the ramp department. I more consider it for the 4 tap to investigate. So, yes, it's an expensive way of making artifacts, but it is a way of doing so nonetheless. Next, we have Ragavan, the current scourge of Modern and Legacy and every format known to mankind, except Standard. 1 red for a 2/1. You can dash it for 1 in a red, which means that it has haste when it comes out, but you bounce it back to your hand at the end of the turn. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player, you make a treasure token, and you exile the top card of that player's library. Till in a turn, you may cast that card. Obviously very powerful. Makes treasure tokens so that we can stack them to Lucas. Honestly speaking, if you wanted to cut the budget of this deck down, just cut this card, and you've already cut the budget by about $100. So this would be my first consideration. Next, we have Tamio's Journal. 5 mana for a legendary artifact. At the beginning of your upkeep, investigate. So this alone fuels Lucas pretty well. You can also tap it and sacrifice 3 clues. Hey, guess what? This deck makes literally nothing but clues pretty much. And you get to tutor. Search your library for a card, put it in your hand. That's all. Honestly, kind of OP for this particular deck. This is like... I would say that this would be the first card that should go in the deck, honestly. But I digress. Next, we have Tireless Provisioner. Whenever a land enters the battlefield in your control, you make a food or a treasure token you get to pick. A lot of people are comparing this to like Lotus Cobra, which I think is a fair comparison, technically speaking. But we just really care about the fact that it makes artifacts for our buddy Lucas. Tireless Tracker, same principle basically, except this makes clues, which has some synergies with like Tamio's Journal. And also, whenever you sacrifice a clue, which, by the way, Tireless Tracker doesn't care about you sacrificing it through the clue's ability, you put a +1/+1 counter on Tireless Tracker. That means that every time you sacrifice a clue with Lucas, Tireless Tracker gets a +1/+1 counter. And that's it for the artifact generation. That's pretty much everything out of the way, except I have a singular card over here. I have Gearper Aether Grid. 2 in a red for an enchantment. Tap 2 untapped artifacts you control. Gearper Aether Grid deals 1 damage to target creature or player. Now, let's say that you just can't keep Lucas on the battlefield, right? You just made all these artifacts and you just got nothing to do with them. Absolutely nothing. Well, Gearper Aether Grid is in here for that exact scenario. It's basically our backup plan, just in case is what I actually named the little packet here. But it's literally in here just in case we need like a second way to win, or maybe you just need a way to like start controlling the board a little more. Ideally, we're gonna have a metric butt ton of artifacts to tap for this, so we should be able to start pinging things down pretty quick, including players. But yeah, anyway, that is my Lucas and Max deck. I hope you enjoyed. If you have any recommendations for me, please let me know. I know I missed a bunch of stuff. I guess the only other thing worth noting here is that I am running the 3 artifact lands, Great Furnace, Seed of the Synod, and Tree of Tales. Not running the colorless one, Darksteel Citadel, because 3 colors, that's a little iffy. How you going, as James would say. But yeah, I'm actually really looking forward to putting this deck together. I think it'll be a lot of fun. It could probably hold its own pretty well in the mid power level range. Cascade can be a little spiky sometimes, so I'm not really sure how it'll work. But I'm really looking forward to playing this deck. I hope you thought that this was cool, because I thought it was awesome. Again, any recommendations you have, please feel free to share them below in the comments. Also, anything else that you'd like to see, feel free to share below in the comments. We always love to hear from y'all. And if you enjoyed this video, please make sure that you subscribe. I know that we have like, I want to say on average we have like 5 to 10% of our viewers is subscribers. So all you out there who aren't subscribed, why not? Like, why not subscribe, right? We don't even post that often. Okay, once a week, but still, like, come on. There's no reason not to subscribe. You know you want to. It's Halloween. Give us our Halloween wish, if that's a thing. Anyway, this has been Paul with Commander at Arms with a Lucas and Max Stranger Things deck tech. Happy Halloween. Be safe. And I will talk to y'all later.
Peace.
See ya.